Gabor. That's a very common Hungarian name. I work for the Hungarian Helsinki Committee, which is one of the main Hungarian or Central European human rights NGOs. We work mainly with asylum issues, asylum seekers, refugees. We provide free legal assistance, but we also have other activities as well, like prison or police chain monitoring, anti-discrimination projects, or access to justice projects. I don't really work on the Roma human rights issues directly, but living in this country and being a human rights advocate, of course, we can't have a closed eye on this either, as this is being the main human rights issue now in Hungary. Voilà. Hungary is the country where the Roma are the less segregated, let's say, or less different from the rest of society from a linguistic viewpoint. So the vast majority of the Roma speak Hungarian as a mother tongue, but where the Roma are the most segregated in a geographical sense. So if you see where they live, if they are mixed with the rest of the population, is what something I have just read a couple of months ago. I think it also tells a lot. And so the vast majority of the Hungarian Roma belongs to the group of Romungro, which means that Hungarian Roma, basically their mother tongue is Hungarian. Most of them are not very much attached to the traditional jobs or the traditional culture. There's another main group, the so-called Ola Tigán, the Ola Gypsy. Ola is an old word to say Romanian. So there is a sort of suggestion as if they were from Romania originally. I don't know, this should be explored with some experts. And they speak a language which is called Lovari. This is an Indian language, it's close to Sanskrit. And there is another important group called the Beás Tigán. They mainly live in the southwest of the country. And they speak a language which is basically a Romance language. It's an old Romanian dialect. So if one speaks either Romanian or Italian or Spanish, can understand quite a lot of words. And they also have a very different culture in music, or they have different traditional jobs or professions. Yes. And often there can be some tension perceived between these groups. So basically the groups which are perceived by the majority society as gypsies can be quite different. Question of xenophobia in Hungary. The Eurobarometer surveys show that Hungary has the most xenophobic attitudes when it comes to the perception of immigration in the whole EU, including the applicant countries, which was quite striking for all of us working in this field. There was another survey in Hungary where they tried to research xenophobic attitudes in relation with concrete groups of foreigners. And for the sake of the research, they invented a non-existent group of foreigners, so-called Piresians, and the vast majority of the respondents said that they would never accept any people from this group into Hungary, which shows that their racist or xenophobic attitude is not based on concrete experiences, it's just based on general ideas about nobody should be let in.
Fear or whatever.
Fear. Yes. So there is no concrete experience behind.
That's interesting.
That's clear because Hungary has one of the lowest foreign populations in the EU. The immigration into Hungary is not particularly high. It's very low compared to most Western European countries. And there is also this special feature that most immigrants in Hungary are ethnic Hungarians from the surrounding countries. So culturally, from a religious viewpoint, racially, they cannot be distinguished from the host society. So basically the perceivable, really different immigrants who have different facial features, who speak a different language, are very, very few. So basically this whole xenophobic attitude is based on the lack of information, on the lack of education, on the lack of openness, but it's not based on any concrete social problem. And this goes basically for all the negative attitudes that most Hungarians have. Like most Hungarians have very negative attitudes concerning the disabled persons, or concerning sexual minorities, or concerning the Jewish minority. With the Roma issue, the main difference is that it's a much more complicated question, in the sense that there is a huge social problem behind. A huge social problem of poverty, of discrimination, of unemployment, of cultural conflicts. And of course, by any means I wouldn't say that it makes any negative or discriminatory attitude justified, but the solution of this problem is much more complicated. Experiences with education, human rights education, tolerance education, with having positive characters on TV, for example, it can be basically, if not solved, but at least it can be, those negative attitudes can be weakened or helped. As for the Roma issue, these means are also very important, but in addition there should be some much more effective social policy, economic policy, intercultural dialogue policy, in a sense. If you see the map of unemployment in Hungary, it's very similar to the map of where the Roma population is living. So
it's
the majority,
reflecting.
and a big part of the Roma population is unemployed. And of course, many say that this is the usual accusation against the Roma, that they don't like working, or they have in their culture, in their blood, that they don't want to work. And on the other hand, if you see what was the situation in the 70s and the 80s, the vast majority, basically all the Roma were employed. They all had a job. They were workers, mainly in factories, in different industrial areas. And what happened when the economic change, the political change came? They were the first victims of this change, as these industries were the first to collapse when the old socialist economy system was over. They lost all their jobs. They didn't have any specific qualification. Their skills that they obtained as, let's say, workers in a factory was not needed anymore. And this is the time where the unemployment raised.
Quite a long time ago as well.
Yes, it was about 20 years ago nearly, but the problem is that no real willingness for an effective solution has been shown in the last 20 years. I mean, all the governments for 20 years have been talking about this, yet this is very important to do something about. There were policies, there were programs which seemed to be successful in a certain area, in a certain field. But on the other hand, there is no really visible, impressive results. If you see still what is the proportion of Roma students at universities,
low.
It's minuscule. It's practically non-existent in many fields. I mean, how do you expect a discriminated or minority which is in a bad situation to come out from this situation if you don't provide a real access to education, and you don't really have to create a professional elite within this population that can later help the others to come out of this.
Where do you think the future will lie? In what area do you think this solution will be coming from? Is it something that will deteriorate to the point where something has to be done, or I don't know what?
I can't really predict. A few thoughts about that. First of all, I think that this is not a Hungarian problem, this is a European problem. In this region,
because I think that is quite...
That's really of great importance to acknowledge and to really think with a European hat in this question. I mean, if you see, it's basically the same problem in Slovakia, in Romania, in Bulgaria, in the Czech Republic. The problems are very similar, with a significant immigration of Central Eastern European Roma into some Western European countries like Italy or France or Belgium
or Germany.
That becomes a pan-European issue to solve.
Exactly.
And then also the European Union can have more and better means to act. Not just the European Union, but I mean the pan-European organs. It can be like a positive push for these countries who are maybe already a bit less motivated to solve this question.
Yes, perhaps because they have been faced with that question for quite some time.
For quite some time, but not without any really concrete action to take.
Exactly, because I think it needs economic solutions somewhere, and therefore you need wealth, and therefore you have to find this wealth somehow. Perhaps the green change would contribute a large amount of jobs if there was a change of thought. You know, like producing of solar energy, etc., etc. In a country like this.
I think you found the right word is change of thought, change of attitude. I think even when it comes to the Roma issue, or it comes to poverty in general, apparently the policies of the last 20 years didn't really bring any positive change. There are still, they say, 3 million people in Hungary, 30% of the population living under the poverty line, in a country which is member of the European Union and which is not among the poorest in Europe.
No, exactly. This is the astonishing thing.
So this is why, and for example, coming back to the Roma issue, it's very much a question of poverty and of social exclusion, and this is where the problem should be solved. After mentioning the European intervention or the sort of European or push that could help.
One thing I'm slightly wary about is that because Europe has the money and has this obviously the power because of it, it can set certain conditions. It can channel the money.
I mean, normally in social sciences we distinguish assimilation and integration.
Exactly.
Assimilation is where you lose your own...
Where you get swallowed up.
Yes, when you basically lose your own culture. And integration means learning from the majority but also keeping the minority
keeping your
culture.
own and contributing whatever you've contributed before.
Yes, and it means of course the acceptance of rules which apply in that society. That's clear. I mean, I think there are many debates about this in Western societies with the large immigrant communities, mainly with, for example, where there are large Muslim communities.
Exactly.
And integration is often given a sort of negative sense, but in my opinion, or in the Hungarian context, it rather means a positive thing. It means that you are not requested to be assimilated or completely lose your own culture, your own features, your own traditions, but on the other hand, you have to learn to live together with the society, and also the society has to learn to live with the minorities.
So is this process has to happen, and that is a difficult change for many people, I think, including myself, because we're all very, in our own little world, as it were, and to get out of that is not easy.
Yeah, that's right. And just as you mentioned, there is another problem there is a real double standard as far as the Roma culture is concerned in Hungary. A double standard in a way that many specific areas of the Roma culture is highly appreciated in the society. Traditional gypsy music is it's more popular than ever. It's very trendy, it's very nice, everybody likes it. Gypsy dancing. But on the other hand, people don't really associate that this is the culture of those same people that I usually don't like, let's say. So
that are lazy
there is no connection. That let's see the positive side of the whole thing. And I think basically, just coming back to your idea that we need a new thought or a new initiative, I think that's absolutely true. There are some very radical voices now in Hungarian politics, also in not just in politics but in other social spheres, that propose very radical solutions, that propose that we should break all the taboos and forget about political correctness and just say what we think, and basically they don't really suggest any positive solution. And I would say that in a very strange, or if you like it like this, a very perverted way, it can be useful in a way that it asks questions, and there are valid questions to which we have to find, of course, very different solutions than those posed by these radical voices. But that's true that just not mentioning, not talking about, it will not help. We have to find real...
You can't just swipe it under the carpet.
Yes, and of course, also speaking as somebody from a human rights NGO, of course, non-discrimination and the respect of human rights is the most important in these things. But in addition, there should be some realistic social policy and the politicians should also somehow react to the reality and find out with respecting human rights and the principle of non-discrimination. But there should be some other solution, and this is why it is a bit different problem from all the others that the Hungarian society faces now. And for example, if you see the declarations made by the police chief in Miskolc, that was highly criticized by the human rights community, or if you see the comments of the human rights ombudsperson in Hungary, who basically talked about gypsy crime and all these concepts that he would be supposed to work against. And the fact that he is still an ombudsperson, and even if we ask him to renounce the same day, and
he doesn't react.
He doesn't react. He said that their words were misunderstood, but I think that really shows how deep this discriminatory attitude and this negative attitude is in all parts of society.
There has been a long process, and therefore it's like you grow up with it, it's around you, and therefore it is difficult to deconstruct and decompose.
And what is also missing is, just coming back to the politicians, that there should be a unique position, a single common position of mainstream political parties. No violence, no discrimination, no sort of common punishment of the community for something that some of its members commit, and yes to positive solution. And of course, if the solutions, the proposals are different, that's fine. I mean, this is why we don't expect all the politicians to have the same program.
Exactly.
But there should be a common minimum. This should apply for all the human rights issues, not only the
exactly.
This is something which is really, really missing in Hungary, and I think in most Central Eastern European countries. Like if there is let's say a racist or anti-Semitic or anti-immigrant violent attack in Western European countries, and the next day you have the Prime Minister and the President and the mainstream parties organizing the rally and the march in the center of the capital, and there are 200,000 people saying that no, we don't accept this. Here, if it happens, basically doesn't really interest anyone. Of course, democracy is of course very important, because this is the political or social system where you can actually articulate your opinion. But on the other hand, it's a main issue of education and attitude.
Exactly.
I mean, if people are used to this kind of way of life, and this is also a heritage of this special socialist regime that Hungary had in the 70s and the 80s, which was very depoliticized. So basically, it was some way it was a somehow less tough dictatorship. It was a bit more liberal dictatorship in many senses, mainly in an economic sense, but also in a social way. But people were just used to know politics is something that we are not interested about, and we don't want to. I mean, just want my little life.
We definitely noticed that.
Just want to live my life with my family, just at
Children
my home,
and
they really don't care what is going out there. If they beat up the Roma or they kill them, many people would say, okay, that's not very nice, but they would never take any action. They would not even go to a peaceful demonstration to show that they do not agree with this. Basically, in the last 20 years, the only political forces that managed to organize important demonstrations and rallies were the extreme right, with very, very few exceptions. And when it comes to the Roma issue, actually, according to the surveys and the polls, most Hungarian citizens don't even have any sort of solidarity. They may not like violent actions, but they usually understand, they usually agree with the fact that these are real problems, and they don't propose a positive solution for that.
You're very vocal and very expressive, and I thank you very, very much for making
it's my pleasure. That's my trainer background, you know. I do so much teaching and training that you have to. It's
good. You're good at what you do, obviously. So thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
Perhaps
my pleasure.
it'll do something.
Yes, I hope so.